Just Well, good evening, everyone. This is Mel from Sneakers Corner. Welcome to so many people that are in the chat there. Today we have the honor to have our special guest Odon Lafontaine.
Oh, and an honor to be here. The honor is mine.
And also Murad, a guy who everyone I'm sure is familiar with. But Odon, I'd like you to give everyone a brief introduction to who you are, particularly for those who may not have seen our earlier video together. Could you tell us a little bit about your background and who you are and what your connection is?
So I'm French. I work on Islam. I've been working on Islam since maybe 10 or 15 years, something like this. I've been doing serious work on Islam since 10 years. Since I've met Edouard-Marie Galès, who is a Belgian scholar, a theologian, and who wrote a tremendous thesis about Islam's origins called The Messiah and His Prophet. He's got a website. You can go check his work. His website is rootsofislamtruehistory.com. I guess we'll fill in the complete address in the description thereafter. And so I've taken an interest in Islam because I've met some Muslims and I've discussions with them, and I felt a bit troubled by their claims. What they claim to be, what they claim the Quran to be, once I read it, was not what it was supposed to be. And I thought there was something odd at the beginning, something odd in the origins of Islam. And so I started studying the tremendous work, all of what the scholars have done. And it's since 20, 30, 40 years, it's been a kind of revolution in this field of work. The scholars have made many discoveries, and what Edouard-Marie Galès did is he tried to make a sort of a synthesis of all those discoveries in 2004 at the time of his thesis. And one of his main discoveries what he gave to the public is a new exegesis of the Quran. There have been many works on Mecca, for example, on archaeology and on many topics. But the thing about his exegesis is it's quite nobody knew it. It comes from the tradition of the Eastern Christian who speak Arabic and also for some of them Aramaic, without being forced into the Arabic Islamic concept. As for example, when a non-Muslim Arabic speaker reads Bayt in the Quranic text, he is not forced to read it and to understand it as being the Kaaba of the Mecca. He can read it as being a house and also as being the temple, because Bayt, in all of the Hebrew and Aramaic tradition, has always been Jerusalem's temple. You see, this is the kind of work he did with some Eastern Christian scholars, and it led him to his thesis, The Messiah and His Prophet. And I've worked with him a lot. I've written a vulgarization of his work, which was the first edition of my book, The Great Secret of Islam. And I've kept on working on Islam and Islam's origin. I've kept on reading the new discoveries, reading what the scholars discovered. And they discovered a lot since 2004. And this led me to this new edition, which you see on your screen, The Great Secret of Islam, the red edition, the 2020 edition, which is a synthesis of Gallet's work and also many other people's work. As for me, I come from a commercial background. I've done an MBA. I've worked as a strategy consultant, which means I'm not a scholar myself, but I'm used to the scientific method, the scientific methodology, which is what I did on a daily basis when I was a strategy consultant, and which is the basis also, or should be the basis also, of the historical analysis. And this is maybe what I can bring to the Islamic studies, is my skills in terms of scientific methodology. I should also add that I'm part of a French organization that studies Christianity's origin, also with Edouard Marie Galès. We study it we study it with the tradition from the point of view of the tradition of the Eastern Christian. There is something also very groundbreaking in the field of study, and it's all linked. You have to know a bit about Christianity's origin, to know a bit about the Aramaic cultural background of the Middle East, to really understand the context of Islam's origin. It's all linked.
So I would kind of view you as someone who has distilled Gallet's work down, and maybe what my job is to distill even your work down to make it more understandable to the public, and maybe get it out to a wider audience. Maybe, Murad, do you want to jump in and tell us a little bit about yourself while we're at it?
Well, thank you for having me once again, Mel, and I want to say that this is a great honor to be speaking with Odon Lafontaine, and I want to say that I'm nowhere near this caliber, this level of this author. But what I am is that I've been studying Islam like an amateur for more than 10 years, and I am an ex-Muslim myself, and my original language is Arabic, so this is my mother tongue. So I see through the like the hoaxes that the people give to the West, how they translate the Quran and make like a faulty translation and all this stuff. And I'm very interested in the Aramaic roots for the Quran, the Syriac, the Hebrew, and all this stuff. So, and anything that's hard, I like it. So, where is Noah's Ark? This could be the hardest question ever. Then give it to me. I'm like an Indiana Jones in this stuff. So, some people know me as Sheikh Murad when I do an Islamic topic. And if I am speaking about a biblical topic, it will be Saint Murad, and this is just for fun. I'm not a sheikh, and I'm not a saint. So that's it.
Yet. You're not a saint yet.
Not yet. Okay, so fantastic to hear from both of you. Odon, why not introduce your topic? You're going to be looking, so I believe, at the Quranic evidence for your thesis. So introduce us however you like.
Okay, the thing is, we most scholars read the Quran, but they don't read it as a whole. They have partial readings of the Quran. They read surahs, they read verses, but they don't get to a global exegesis, which is what Galès did, which is what I will try to present this evening. The global exegesis, it is when one tries to understand a word by comparing it to every other occurrence in the same text, and by deducting his meaning. So, and this is what we try to do. And when we read the Quran like this, we see a completely different story than the standard Islamic narrative. it is very very amazing to see that there is a kind of secret in Islam, and it is encapsulated in the Quran. This is what I will try to present here. With the presentation will be a bit technical, so don't be afraid. The video will be on the YouTube channel. You can always get back to it. And it is a very big presentation. I won't be able to make it to have it all this evening. I will do only the first part, which is point 1 to 4, and another time we will see the point 5 and 6. So the thing about the Quran, to get to know the Quran, one has to understand who are the protagonists of the Quran. Who does the Quran speak of? And before seeing names of the protagonists, such as the Jews, the Christians, and so, the main protagonists of the Quran are the one who wrote it, or the one who composed it. Hence, the preacher or the preachers, we don't know, who's preaching seems to be the basis of the Quranic text. And this tells us about their language, their ethnicity, their community, their cultural environment, their religious training, their knowledge, their objectives, their motivation. For example, we see Aramaic background in many words of the Quran. I've chosen two examples. The Gehen in French, Gehenna in English, Gehanamana. It's a valley of Hinnom. It's in Jerusalem, and it has become synonymous with hell and punishment in the Jewish and Christian culture. And it is also synonymous with hell in the Muslim tradition, with many occurrences in the Quran. What does it tell us? It tells us, obviously, that there was an Aramaic background to the Quran, to the preachers whose preaching are in the Quran. Another example is the expression, a very strange expression, Mother of God. We see in Surah 5, verse 116, which has led Muslims to believe that the Trinity for Christian was composed with the Father, the Mother, and the Son. And Muslims believed it at such a point that some of them invented an imaginary cult of the Mother of God, a cult for some unknown Arabian Christians, whereas the solution is very simple. In the Aramaic Christian culture, the Mother of God is the Holy Spirit. And nowadays it is still used. This image is still used by the Eastern Christian. You see there that the cultural background is not told in the Quran, but it is written there, and we have to study it and take it into account. And we see.
Can I interject there for a second? Is it because that the word ruah, spirit, is feminine? Is that part of the reason why the view Holy Spirit as the Mother of God?
Yes, it's part of the how can I say that? It's not a riddle, but a kind of riddle. When you play with words, the Eastern Christians have invented this way of speaking of the Trinity, of the Holy Trinity, as being Father, Mother, and Son. I think it's Galles who found this, because he once visited a patriarch, an Eastern patriarch, and he asked him about the Mother of God, and the patriarch laughed and told him, look on the wall. On the wall there was a painting or drawing or something worshipping the Holy Trinity and being described as Father, Mother, and Son.
Can I
Wow.
just
Yeah.
jump in?
Yeah.
The Quran, in some point, he mixes Mary, that she was part of the Trinity. But I found that there is this Collyridian heresy that went on in Harran, but then it died off. So don't you think that this is mixing in the Quran, that it maybe misunderstood something, and it was speaking about a certain heresy, Christian heresy?
You see, when you do research, you have to abide by the Occam's razor, which means the simplest explanation is most often the better. What I just told is very simple, and it makes a lot of sense with the text. The preacher criticize the Holy Trinity for what it is, really.
Mm.
The Holy Trinity is the Father, the Mother, the Holy Spirit, and the Son. For sure, we could argue that it might have been a cult somewhere, a real cult, not an imaginary one, a real cult like the one you mentioned, but it's so much more complicated than the simple explanation that I just gave you, which is basically what is written.
Can I just jump in?
It's take into account an Aramaic background for it.
That is still a usage that still occurs today. That's what you said a few minutes ago, isn't it? That this idea of the Holy Spirit.
Yes, yes. In the Aramaic-speaking communities, on the formerly Aramaic-speaking communities of Eastern Christians, don't forget that there were up to 1 million, maybe 1.5 million Aramaic speaking Christian up until the year 2000. The Iraqi Christians, they spoke Suret, which is an Aramaic dialect, and there were hundreds of thousands of them before the wars. And there were also Aramaic-speaking Christians in Syria, and they kept on the tradition from the first centuries of their Christianization. So this was an introduction. Who does the Quran speak of? The Quran also tells us about the audience of the preacher. You see, I'm pursuing here in reading between the lines. What is not written, reading what is not written in the Quran. Because when we read a text, like the Quran, when we read preaching, it also tells us about the audience of the preacher, of the preachers. Because when we look at what the preachers decide to tell the audience and what not to tell them, it tells us about the audience. It tells us about what they already know. It tells us about what needs to be explained and taught to them. We also have their remarks. We also have their objection. We also can read their assent, and so we can not guess, but we can see. It's a sort of a Chinese portrait. We can see who is the audience. And mainly, we will see that the audience is Christian. As for the people that are named in the Quran, the categories of people, this is the main part of my expose. We have to look very thoroughly into them. What are they? And for this, there are two tools that are very, very useful to get the gist of the Quranic text. It's the Quran Gateway website, which has been made by Dr. Brubaker, and its Islamic equivalent, which is corpus.quran.com. I've put the same. I'm sorry, I've put the same address for the two websites. The one on the right is corpus.quran.com.
Yeah.
But this one is well known. The other one, Quran Gateway, is a bit more sophisticated. It has been made by scholars, for scholars. It requires.
Did you
Yes,
say
Mel?
it was created? Did you say it was created by Robert Kerr?
No, not
Or
Robert
who?
Kerr, but Dr. Daniel Dan Brubaker.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay, I
The
misheard you
one
then.
who studied
Yeah.
the discrepancies and in the earliest manuscript of the Quran.
Yeah.
I've met him in an Inara meeting 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And with those websites, you can have I don't know the English word, something like in French it's concordance. You can look for an Arabic root in the text and have all of its occurrences in the Quran. And which is very useful to compare the meaning of a word in one verse with the meaning of the same word in another verse, and so on. And with this, without knowing Arabic, but you have to know a bit about grammar, about linguistics, you can really get into the text, and so you can really understand who are the people that are named in the Quran. And those people, as I've checked it, are the following, according to the number of occurrences in the Quran. This is a counting that I made myself, which was a very tremendous work, because I looked for every occurrences of those words and checked it with the others and so on. And so the people that the Quran speaks the most of are the kuffar, or the people that are described with the KFR roots. You see, it's almost 500 occurrences. Thereafter, you have the mushrikun, the people that are described with the use of the SRK root, the associationists, and the people that are linked to a kitab, a book with the katibi roots. And thereafter, it's very we have a very less occurrences of the other people, the Judeans, as Yahud or as Hud, the sons of Israel, the Nazarenes, the Nasara, the believers and the submitters, the people of Pharaoh, people of the gospel, which is the only mention of Christian people, one occurrence only. And there are also many other categories which I've written here: Romans, Sabian, hypocrites, and so on. But this is very compelling that there is no Masihi in the Quran. There is no Arab Christian, no etymologically correct Arab Christian, because the right name for Christians is Masihi in Arabic, and it's not Nazarene. Nazarene, it's something else. We will see it on the next part of the expose. And why is it that there is absolutely no mention of the Masihi? This is very strange. Is it because it's obvious everybody is Masihi, or at least the audience is Masihi, is Christian Arabic? You see, that's also something we have to take into account. And so the Quran speaks of all those categories, and we will see category by category for the main one, for the kuffars, for the mushrikun, and for the Ahl al-Kitab, who they are. So who are the kuffars? Kuffar. They are the misbelievers according to the standard Islamic narrative. Mainly the people who don't believe in Islam, who don't believe in Muhammad's prophecy. But this is not the real etymology of the word. The KFR root does not mean misbelief. It means to cover. So the kuffar, the kafir, the kafirun, in plural, are the coverers, the one who cover. And we have 27 occurrences of this word kafir, and many other occurrences of a different form of the KFR root, in the sense of covering, disbelieving, denying, rejecting, and also forgiving. I've checked all of those occurrences. I won't present them all now, but one has to do this work to understand what the kuffar are. But you see, we will understand who are the kuffars and who are the Ahl al-Kitab and who are the mushrikun by looking at the interactions between those protagonists. What do they do one with each other? What are their relations? So, as I told you in the standard Islamic narrative, a kuffar is a misbeliever, a non-Muslim, an infidel, and it has become a kind of an insult. But as we know, the Arabic language is very, very, very close to Aramaic and Hebrew. And in Aramaic, the kafir root also means cover, to cover. And we have examples of this root, of this word in the Bible. For example, in Genesis, when Noah kafars the ark, he covers it with oil, bitumen. And from this first meaning to cover, we have many derived meanings. It is always like this in the Semitic language. We have a basic meaning, a fundamental, a ground meaning, and from this we have many derived meaning. So in Aramaic, it can mean also to cover the fault, to cover the sin, and then to forgive or to make atonement. It can also mean to cover something, then hence to keep silent, to pass over in silence, to deny, or even to apostatize. Or it also means a cover, a lid, a pitch, a bow. And in Arabic, it has similar meanings. Cover also means to mask, to shield, and it can mean to forgive. As for example, I've made I've written the second verse of Surah 47, which tells us that God kafars with 2F, which is the intensive form of the verb. He kafars the wrong deeds, which means he kind of forgives the wrong deeds. He does not misbelieves the wrong deeds. He forgives them. And,
can
yes?
I just say that this in Arabic it would be kaffara. So
Yes.
you have kafara, and if you put the diacritical marks, you have, of course, all these readings. So one could be kafara, one could be kaffara. It's the same three letters, but it's a matter of diacritical marks at this point.
Mm-hmm. If you want to get more deeply into this Surah 47, Edouard Marigalet studied it in detail, the beginning, because it is a very, very complex, not that complex, but a very remarkable construction, concentric construction, with the verses that respond one to each other, and it is by studying this construction that he understood that that one of the Muhammad mentioned in the Quran is an interpolation. He wrote an article on it, which has been published in the last Inara volume 10, which was published at the beginning of the year, and you can also see it on his academia page. So this is for the kuffars. Then who are the mushrikun? The SRK roots. Mushrikun means those who associate, those who commit the shirk, which is the association. They are the associationists. And we find many occurrences of this root. And according to the standard Islamic narrative, they are supposed to be idolaters, pagans, polytheists, people who give associates to God. But this is very, very strange as an explanation, because basically a Christian cannot be a polytheist, and this word, the standard Islamic narrative tries to tell us that there were some pagans at the time of Muhammad. And those pagans did associate something with God, with the one God. But it cannot be, because a pagan doesn't know the one God. He doesn't know the concept of it. So he cannot associate anything with the one God that he doesn't know. For example, can you imagine that a Greek, an ancient Greek, will associate Aphrodite with God? He doesn't know God. This is a nonsense, a complete nonsense. The only way that this expression mushrikun can make sense, it is if it is an attack on a monotheistic faith from a monotheistic point of view. And we have seen such an use of the associate SRK root in the rabbinic literature against the Christians before Islam. So basically, mushrikun, it pertains to Christian in our logic, and it pertains to Trinitarian Christians, the one who says that God is Father, Creator, Holy Spirit, and he is also Jesus. So once you have this in mind, and once you also have in mind what I said about the absence of the Masih in the Quran, one could think that the Quranic preacher and his audience consider themselves as being the true Christian, the true disciple of the Masih, of Al-Masih, Jesus, against the wrong Christian, which would be Trinitarian Christians. And I think it is the meaning of mushrikun, and it is its only meaning. Besides,
can I just jump?
Yes, Mel.
Can I just jump in? Considering that the Islamic narrative has forced a different meaning onto it, the idea of a polytheist, would this be part of the reason behind trying to present pre-Islamic Arabia as full of polytheists, despite the fact that there's plenty of evidence that there were lots of Christians in the populated areas, a far cry from the picture that they would like to present? Is that part of the reasoning behind the way that they've retold the story?
The main reason of this invention is to create a sort of blank page on which Islam history can be written. And so they invented a past full of pagans and polytheists, because a pagan or a polytheist could not fathom the very idea of a one God. Hence, Muhammad's preaching was divine. You see, it's a very strong apologetic. It's the same apologetic as having Muhammad being an illiterate person who did not know how to read or write, which is false. But you see, if Muhammad was a pagan, if his audience was pagan, if they didn't knew anything about the one God, how come this idea came unto them? It must be a divine revelation. So it's an apologetic argument. And also it fits with the text. When you see mushrikun in the text, and when you are in the 8th or 9th or 10th century inventing Islam's history, inventing the standard Islamic narrative, you have to make with what you have, which is the Quranic text. And in the Quranic text, there are those mushrikuns. So why not invent pagans? Why not invent pagans, paganic past?
Can I just
of Jahiliya? It is very, very important for the functioning of Islam. Islam function as a sense of history. It gives history a goal, and for this you have to start with a starting point, which is paganism, which is barbarism, which is the Jahiliya. You have the revelation, which is the instrument of progress, and through this progress, through the revelation, through the Islamic revelation, you will come to the bright future, which will be the world completely Islamicized and the day of judgment. We have exactly the same pattern in all the progress ideologies, we always have a past of barbarism. For example, the Middle Ages in Europe, which is supposed to be completely awful. We have a kind of revelation, which is the 18th century, the Enlightenment, the philosophy, the reason, and so on. And through this revelation, there will be a progress of humanity to a bright future, to a world which would be ridden of evil.
Can
This
I
is,
just add something?
Yes, of course.
About why did they create this pagan past? I think there could be an easy answer. Just look at who is writing and where is he from. Most of these people, they came from Balkh area, which is the Central Asian area. And at this part, you had this, what they call today Ka'bat Zoroaster, like the shrine or the Kaaba of Zaradusht. And at this place, you had the Buddhist statues, and they were pagans at here. This is the only place that fits the same story. So they injected the same story that they saw with their eyes into the Muhammad, but they put it in the Hijaz. I think that's why they did this.
Yes, it's
I think that's
yeah, Mel. We don't hear you, Mel. There's something wrong
I
with
just
you.
think I think it makes more sense that the writers are in an Aramaic speaking area rather than way off in the Balk. I think that might be a later.
No, I'm speaking about hadith.
phenomenon.
I'm speaking about hadith, Mel. You get the idea that mushrikun is
hadith.
polytheist from hadith.
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
Without Tabari
thing-
and Bukhari, you don't know what is mushrikun unless you do the hard work, and you will come to this conclusion that this is Christians only.
This is not such hard work to know what mushrikuns are, because at the time of Tabari, there were plenty of Jews calling the Christian also mushrikun in their language. The thing is, Murad, paganism did not last very long. The Christianization of the world was a very silent and massive phenomenon at the first, second, third century. And even in Central Asia, the Christianization spread. And in the 7th or 9th century, we don't have pagan Buddhists. We have post-Christian Buddhism, which has taken into account some Christian ideas, and they are not really pagans, but they could be seen as pagans by Muslims or maybe by Jews. But you see, it's a kind of a digression. We should focus on our topic.
Yes.
So
let's get back to the core.
Let's go back to it. Who are the mushrikun? Basically, they are the Christians, and we will see that in the Quranic text, it makes sense. Every time we see mushrikun and we apply the Christian meaning to it, it makes sense. It makes sense to the phrase, to the verse, everything fits together. And so now we have to look into the people of the book, the Al-Kitab. We have 32 occurrences of the expression as Al-Kitab. Al-Kitab meaning the Al is a word which derives from the tent, I think, the tent of the scripture, the one who are in the same tent. And we have also 46 other occurrences that I've checked, at least. This is my counting, in which the word kitab is used to define a community, a group of people, according to their use of the kitab. And there are many other occurrences of the word kitab, which does not pertain to a religious use of the word or a community. So
did I hear you right? Sorry, did I hear you right that you said it meant tent of the book?
Yes, but you see, it's not exactly the book. I will explain it thereafter. al, the word al, the basic meaning, the first meaning was tent, the tent.
Okay.
As in the tent for nomads, for example.
And also it would connect with the Festival of the Booths, that Jewish idea of having the Ark of the Covenant inside a tent.
No, I don't think so. I think it's a very Arabic word used by people who use tents, and they use it as an image to designate a group of persons, the person who share the same tent, which means the group of. So Ahl al-Kitab means the group of the people of the Kitab.
Okay.
And so according to the standard Islamic narrative, this expression, people of the book, Ahl al-Kitab, means either Jews or Christian or Muslims, Jews and Christian, or Jews and Christian and Muslim, and it depends on the context. So it's a very, very strange word because those people are very different indeed. Jews are not Christian and Muslims are not Jews nor Christians. And so it's very strange to have the same expression to designate all of these people where they are so different. So we'll see. Yes, Mel?
I would suggest that one of the reasons why there's this emphasis on the people of the book might be to do with the Iraqi background in that Manichaeism from the 3rd century really emphasized the importance of scriptures. So you have a bit like J. Smith would say, the man on the book, So maybe that's part of the reasoning behind it.
Yes, it might be. But you see, Mel, the Kitab is not really a book in Arabic. A book is a mushaf, a religious book. The first Quranic books were mushafs and not kitabs. A kitab, etymologically, it is what has been put in writing, what has been prescribed, what has been ordained. It is the sense of the law, in the sense of the Torah. And it is exactly the same meaning as in Hebrew for Torah, the Hebrew word for Torah. You see, people of the book, they are not the people of the book, but are the people of the prescription, the people of the law. And it is very strange to have this expression designating the Christians as they are not people of the book, not people of the law and the prescription, and they are the people of the gospel, but the gospel is not a book. The gospel is a person. It is Jesus Christ. And the Christian always defended themselves as not being people of the book, but the people of Christ. So, again, something very odd in the standard Islamic narrative. And we will see that this narrative is completely wrong. It is a sort of reimagination, reinvention of the text, of what the text really means. And for this, we have to take a deep dive into the Quran and to look at all of the occurrences of the expression, the people of the book. So I've listed them all here, and I've classified them into main themes. And firstly, if we want to know what the people of the book are, we have to look into the Quran and see what the Quran tells us about the people of the book. And we see that some of the people of the book, have made very great offenses. People of the book, some of them have covered. They have been kuffar. So you see this in this verse. Neither those who cover among the people of the book, nor the associationists appreciate that a blessing from your Lord should descend down upon you. So the people of the book are kuffars, kafir. They also are deceptive, as some of them would have liked to lead you astray. They also refuse to believe in the evidence, and they also are kuffars. Because let's say one part of the people of the book believe at the beginning of the day what has been brought down on those who believe, and be coverers at the end of the day. Perhaps these people will come back from their error. They still refuse to believe in the evidence, or people of the book. Why do you cover the verses of God while you are witnesses? And they are coverers against God. People of the book, why do you cover the verses of God when God is witness of what you are doing? What they do, what other great offenses? If the people of the book believed, it will be better for them. There are some who have faith, but most of them are perverts. They have no faith. They are perverts. There will be no one among the people of the book who will not have faith in him, Jesus, before his death. And on the day of the resurrection, he will be witness against them. They refused the Messiah. They did not have faith in Jesus. This is one of the many, could be the biggest offense of the people of the book in the Quran. They also refused the scripture. What does the scripture told them? Say, O people of the book, do you reproach us for anything other than believing in God, in what has been brought down to us, the gospel, and in what has been brought down before the Torah? But most of you are perverted. What do they not believe? What do they refuse to believe? I think this is the same claim as the former. They refuse the messiahship of Jesus, which is stated clearly in the scriptures. Also, they are kuffars. Have you seen the hypocrite saying to their brethren who covered among the people of the book? The kuffars, many of the people of the book will appreciate out of jealousy on their part, being able to make you coverers after you have believed. So these are the occurrences of the people of the book. And there are also many other occurrences of the word kitab, book, prescription, in the Quran, in which it characterizes a community depending on the use it makes of the kitab. And I've counted, like I told you, 46 occurrences, excluding the other 32 of the people of the book. And so we will look at them, and also we will find common themes. Again,
can I interrupt you there? Sorry. So what exactly is your understanding of this sense of covering up? You're not saying that they are changing the text. You're suggesting that they are reinterpreting it in a way that perverts the meaning of the text. Would that be right?
Yes, exactly. It is exactly this. They are covering the text with something. But we will see this in those other major offenses. It will come right now.
Okay, sorry, jumping the gun.
So, what other major offenses in the use of the book? And there are among them Moses people, the people of the book, them clans that know of the book only their own claims, and they are only conjectures. So they give a sort of false testimony about the scripture, about the book. Also, they commit forgery. Woe then to those who, with their own hands, compose the book and then present it as coming from God in order to make a vile profit out of it. It could be the covering you were referring to, Mel. They compose a book and they present it as coming from God, even though it does not come from God. They still refuse to recognize the prophecies who announced the coming of the Messiah. And when a messenger came from God, confirming what was already with them, some of those to whom the book had been given threw the book of God behind their backs, as if they did not know. There is trickery also as an offense in the use of the book. Those to whom we have given the book recognize it as they recognize their children, but some of them hide the truth, even though they know it. And those who hide what God has brought down from the book and say it at a low price, etc. Another trickery offense. Another false testimony, and there are some among them who rub their tongues while reading the book to make you believe that this is from the book when it is not from the book. And they say this is from God when it is not from God, and knowingly speak lies against God. Another kafir offense, all the believers, if you obey a group of those to whom the book has been given, it will make you coverers after you've had faith. And another kufar offense, we have brought down the Torah in which there is guidance and light. It is on its basis that the prophet would submit it to God, as well as the rabbis and teachers judge the affair of the Jews, for they have been entrusted with the custody of the book of God, and they are the witnesses of it. And those who do not judge according to what God has sent down, these are the coverers. So they judge according to something else, maybe the book that they have written, and which they claim that comes from God, even though it doesn't come from God. And so this is the main offense of the people of the book. They have written the Talmuds, they have sanctified the Talmuds, and even though maybe the whole of the Talmud might not have been written at the time of the 7th century, the oral interpretation was there. And this is the covering that this is the covering, and this is what the people of the book are. I'm
Can I jump in there for a second?
What the people of the book are guilty of. Exactly. Oh, people of the book, why do you mix the false with the true and knowingly hide the truth? So this is.
Can I jump in there
now? But this is referring to the Talmud, to the wrong interpretation of the Torah made by some Jews, the Talmudic, the rabbinic Jews. For example, we see it in Surah 2 here. Well, do you hope that such people, the Jews, will believe with you, when in fact a group of them, after hearing and understanding the word of God, knowingly altered the famous falsification route, HRF route, when they knowingly altered it. And when they meet believers, they say, we believe, and so on. Woe then to those who write scripture with their own hands, and then say, this is from God, to make a vile profit out of it.
Can I interrupt you for a second? Odon,
Yes,
can you hear me? It's hard to get. Sometimes you're in the midst. Okay, so they're opposed to the Talmud and I presume the Mishnah and so on, but they're not opposed to it in principle, because essentially they are offering their own Mishnah, their own interpretation of the scripture.
Of course, that's the
Would that be
same.
fair to say?
They claim to have the real interpretation of the book, of the Kitab, of the Torah.
Yeah.
And also they claim to believe in the prophecies that announce the coming of Jesus. And this is the main offense of the people of the book. They should have recognized Jesus as the Messiah, and they didn't. And they wrote books, they wrote writings to hide the truth, to hide Jesus' messiahship, and so on.
Can I just ask one question?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think the Quran is so filled with Talmudic stories, if the Quran itself is saying that these people do this thing, they are the Talmud writers?
You see, in the Talmud was not a creation from the 6th or 2nd or 7th or 9th century. It comes from a long tradition within the Jewish people. And those traditions, some went to the Christians, some went to the Jews, to the rabbinic Jews, and some to other Jewish groups. And so they share a common origin. And you see, when you read, for example, in the Quran, that the one who murders one person, it is as if he has murdered the whole humanity. We also read it in the Talmud, but it does not mean it's a copy of the Talmud. It can mean that it just has a common origin.
But what evidence do you have that this doesn't come from the Talmud, but it could come from something other than the Talmud? Because there is nothing else other than the Talmud which says this commentary. So where do you think could the Quran borrow it?
Let me revert the question. Where do you think the Talmud borrows its writing?
No, the Quran, I'm saying that when it says that whoever murders one as if he murders humanity, do you think the Quran got it from anything other than the Talmud?
Where does it come from in the Talmud? It comes from a Jewish tradition. What I claim is that we found the same Jewish tradition, some of it in the Talmudic Jews, in the Rabbinic Jews, in the Christian Jews, and also in some other Jewish groups that were very influential at the beginning of Islam. It's not because you see the exact same thing in two different writings that one has been copied on another. It comes from a common source. And this common source, I think, is the Jewish tradition.
Might they be objecting to the later Talmudic writers or the later Mishnah as opposed to the Jerusalem one? So, the Babylonian one that they have an objection with. Or is it that they're objecting maybe just to a subset of the Talmud that they have a problem with? So I'm trying to...
There are many different Talmuds, and also, like I told you, all of the Talmuds might not have been written at the time. So we don't have to focus on the Talmud books, but on the interpretation that some Jews had. You see that's a real meaning of the covering, the fact that they are covering the truth of the scripture. What are they covering? They're covering Jesus' messiahship. They're covering, for example, Daniel's prophecy about the coming of the Messiah. This is what
can I ask one thing also?
Excuse me, Murad.
Yes.
Yes.
Can I ask the Talmud writers? Did they say that this is from God? This is one question. And did they sell this prophecy for money? So does it fit the bill? Does what the Quran is saying about them happened?
You see, the Quran is not an exact description of what happens. It is a preaching, and the preachers, the preacher and the preachers, they criticize the Talmudic Jews. They say they are selling their writings, for example. It's not supposed to be true, but it is what the preacher says about them, because obviously we hate them. Something
could mean that they're just making a living out of it. They're making a career out of it.
Some make a career out of it. Yes, of course. So, as a conclusion of this part of the people of the book, we see that the KFR root does not mean to misbelieve. It means to cover the Torah with another interpretation, with the Talmud, with an interpretation which is not the one of the preacher. And the covering is the hiding of Jesus' messiahship. Then we can see also that all of the people of the book are not that worse, that bad, because there is in the Quran a good community and a bad community among the people of the book. We see that mainly in every verse where an offense or something bad is said about the people of the book, that it is not the whole of the people of the book. There are some other people than the one who covers. For example, neither those who covers among the people of the book nor the associationists, those who covers among the people of the book. That means that there are people among the people of the books who do not cover. Who are they? What is this community among the people of the book who does not cover? Haven't you seen the hypocrite saying their fellow who covered among the people of the book, which means that there are among the people of the book people who didn't cover. And there are some among them, among the people of the book, who distort the book with their tongue and so on. But some among them, not all of them, distort the book with their tongue. So here again, we have a clue that there is a good community among the people of the book, a community who is not kufar, KFR. Or you who
Can
believe.
I just
Yes,
can I jump in? That yeah, the issue really, the overall context seems to be that they're directing people to preaching the right message, and so therefore they're pointing them away from the wrong sort of preaching towards the right sort of preaching, and that's what they're all about.
Yes, exactly. But who utters the right sort of preaching? Who is the good community among the people of the book? That's the key of the understanding of the Quran. I think really that's the key. And we see this in many verses like this one. Or you who believe, if you obey only a party from among those who have been given the book, they will turn you back as coverers. So it means that there are people who are not that bad in the one that has been given the book. If the people of the book believe, it will be better for them. Some who have faith, but most of them are perverts. Some of the people of the book have faith. Who are they? Not all of them are light. This is a very important verse.
Can I just jump in?
Yes.
You say for the word that's used there has different connotations in English. So here, a better translation would be distorters rather than perverts, because nowadays we don't tend to use it.
Yes, of course.
in a sense.
Okay, I get your point.
In the old sense of it, it meant a distorter of the truth, but nowadays people just view it as a sexual thing, which clearly it's not.
Very right. I should
it is correct. It is correct. But just modern usage, people wouldn't necessarily get the right sense of it.
Yes. So let's get to this very important verse, Surah 3, verse 113. Not all of them are alike. Of the people of the book are a portion that stands. They rehearse the verses of God all night long, and they prostrate themselves in adoration. They believe in God and the last day. They enjoin what is right and forbid what is wrong, and they hasten in good works. They are in the ranks of the righteous. So there is a good community among the people of the book. Surely there are among the people of the book those who believe in God and so on. They are humble toward God and do not sell the verses of God at a low price. Say, O people of the book, you will purchase for anything other than believing in God, in what has been brought down to us, the gospel, and what has been brought down before the Torah. But most of you are perverted, which means most of you, there is a tiny bit of you that is not perverted in the right meaning of the word. And those people form a good community. The coverers among the people of the book, which means that there are some people that do not cover among the people of the book, as well as the associationists, which also means that the people of the book are not associationists, which means that they are not Christian, will not cease to disbelieve until they are given clear evidence. And discuss only in the best way with the people of the book, except with those who are unjust. So there are people among the people of the book who are a just community, just people. And among these are some who believe in it. The same thing, who reject the verses, but the coverers. So we see that within the people of the book, we have two communities of bad Judeans, bad Jewish people, a bad community. They are the Yahud, the Kufar, the Rabbinic, the Talmudic, and they are the kind of sort of arch enemies to the preachers, to the good Judeans. And there is another community, the good Judeans, who are non-coverers, non-Talmudic. They believe, they have the right faith, they are believers. So the question is, who are they and what do they believe in? But here we just established with the Quran and with the whole of the Quran that there is a good community among the people of the book, a community of believers and a community which obviously had a great influence on the beginning of Islam. So this is very solid ground here. This is the Quran. The Quran as in its literal text. So now, what is this good community among the people of the book? Let us see in the Quran what it tells us. So they are good Judeans, they are opposed to rabbinic Jews, and they command the decent and they forbid the blameworthy. So it means that they are Judeans who belong to the right Judaic religion and they abide by Moses' law. So they are from a community, a Judaic community within the whole Jewish community, which is different from the rabbinic Jews, different from the Talmudic Jews, and they claim to have the right religion, the right Moses religion. And also they recognize Jesus as the Messiah, but they are not Christian, since the people of the book are not associationists, and they are opposed to Christians. And so we can guess, we can deduct that they refuse Jesus' divinity. And also they hold the Torah and the Gospel sacred, and they still have their unaltered text in their possessions. And they have the true faith in those texts, and they believe in God, they believe in the day of judgment, the last day, and they believe it is imminent. Hence, they do believe in the imminent coming of the Messiah Jesus. And here again, we have very, very solid ground on which to build hypotheses to understand Islam's origin. We have here Judean community who was not rabbinic, who was not Talmudic, who recognized Jesus as a Messiah, but only as a man, who refused Jesus' divinity, and who believed in its imminent coming as the Messiah. An imminent coming meaning the end of the world, Jesus would come back and establish God's reign on earth. This is what the Quran tells us, literally. So, what did the good community among the people of the book teach the believers? They teach their faith to the believers, the Arab audience of the preachers, and they are friends with them. They share the same food, as we see in Surah 5, for example, and they teach the believers to abide by the same food laws, and we see that those food laws are a kind of modified Jewish kashrut, the Jewish food laws. The food of the people of the book is permitted to you, and your own food is permitted to them. We also see that the believers are invited to marry to good Judean women, and hence they are invited to form matrimonial alliances, such as maybe Muhammad and Khadija. Khadija, in the standard Islamic narrative, we get to know that she was maybe a Nazarene, maybe very close to the Nazarenes. Maybe she was from this community, this good community. And this is a strategy to form alliances between those Arabs and this community of the people of the book, of Jewish people. And again, it's in Surah 5, which tells us that it is permitted for the believers to marry the chaste from among the believing women and the chaste from among those who have been given the book before you, meaning the people of the book, but the good ones, not the bad ones. So we also understand that the believers have regular contacts with the bad Jews, and they are taught to stay clear of them or to challenge their creed, to challenge the wrong face of the bad community, the bad Jews. The believers have also regular contacts with regular Christians, the mushrikun, and they are invited not to join them, not to acknowledge their wrong creed, and for example, not to marry their women and not to have any relationship with them. This is in Surah 24, verse 3. The fornicator shall not marry any but a fornicatress or a Christian, a mushrikun, mushrikatan. And as for the fornicatress, none shall marry her but a fornicator or a Christian. and it is forbidden to the believers. When we compare this verse to the former verse 5 in Surah 5, we understand that the people of the book cannot be Christians. It is incompatible. There would be contradiction if we thought that the people of the book would be Christians. And we also see that this invitation, this urge to marry good Judean women is to make a good community of it. In fact, all of this pertains to the forming of a community, a unique community, a ummah, and it might be the meaning of the ummah word in the Quran. The believers and the good Judeans form a kind of alliance. There is an alliance between them. They share the same food. They abide by the same law. They marry their own women, and hence they form a community.
Can I jump in there for a second? Could this be the origin of the Umayyad group later, that these are what was formed from this early movement? So the Umayyads are essentially this early movement. Would that be
this I could not tell, but I don't know whether, I don't think there is a connection between Ummah and Umayyad. Is this your claim, Matt?
Yes,
well, I'm just throwing it out there as a possibility. I have no opinion one way or the other.
Ummah is a very ancient word. We find it in the Bible. It's the mother, and it means the tribe. It means the community in a very tribal way.
Can I just add something?
Yes, Muad, of course.
About Umayya and Ummi, no, they are not the same word at all. But if you take the word Ummah, and you will find that it's the same as Mecca. It has this diacritical mark. Now, if you take it apart, it will be Ummami. So the word Ummami in Arabic, it means Gentile. So an Ummah means, I think, I'm gonna ask Odon what does he think, but the word Ummah, I think it means the Gentiles.
Can I just jump in on that, because this is actually the angle I was thinking in terms. Because if this group was forming proselytes among the Arabs, then they would essentially be Gentiles, and therefore Umayyads in that sense of proselytes, Gentiles. Would that work or not? Not so much.
And the Ummi prophet would not be the unlettered; it will be the Gentile prophet.
Gentile prophet, and it's not the Gentile prophet, because if you, I don't know the verse by heart, but if you look into it, it's Rasul Nabi Ummi or Nabi Rasul Ummi. It's the prophet that has been sent to the Gentile. The prophet for the Gentile. And who is this prophet? The standard Islamic narrative tells us it should be Muhammad, but who is the one who expanded the biblical alliance outside of the Jewish people? It's Jesus.
But do you think Jesus
I think it's Jesus that is the Rasul Nabi Ummi.
But isn't Jesus from the same root of Isaac?
Yes. He's supposed to be from the same family as Isaac. But you see, in the Quran and also in the Jewish preaching before Islam, we see, and also in Christian apologetic towards Arabic people, we see a claim being made on the supposed Ishmael ancestry of the Arabs, which would give them access to the biblical alliance. There were some Arabs in the first, second, third centuries that were converted to Judaism, because at this time, Judaism was not closed as it is today, as it has become. Judaism was a proselyte religion, which made proselytes. A proselyte is a non-Jewish Jew, a Jew from the nations. And we have many sources from the antiquity telling us about Judaized Arabs.
Do you think that the Book of Jubilees played a role in this? That it made Ishmael part of this whole thing? It's not that he used Hagar and
The
Ismail.
question is not about the Book of Jubilees in itself, but on the tradition that is expressed in the Book of Jubilees. The Book of Jubilees is the first writing in which we see Ishmael as being the patriarch of the Arabs. There is no such claim in the Bible. In the Bible, there is nowhere we can find that Ishmael could be the ancestor of the Arabs. The first writing is the Book of Jubilee. But you see, it's not the Book of Jubilee who created this claim. It comes from a tradition. So there was a tradition among the Jews that the Arabs descended from Ishmael.
Yes.
And in the Quran, there are many verses, many preaching to persuade the Arabs that they share a common ancestry with the Jews, and that they should join the alliance with the good community. This is what I intend to develop on the next part of the expose, because I only unveiled a tiny bit of what the good community among the people of the book taught the believers, because mostly the Quran tells us about a sort of grand venture that the preachers are preaching to the audience. Join the alliance, emigrate in God's path, become muhajirun, and we shall take Jerusalem together, make the Hajj. Hajj is an Hebrew word for a kind of pilgrimage to Jerusalem, and we shall rebuild its temple, the Beit. Hence, we can maybe have the hypothesis that the rebuilding of the temple is the key to have Jesus come back and to have to trigger the apocalypse. So this is to be continued on the next part. We will see who are the Quranic Nazarenes. We will see, I think, this is my hypothesis, according also to Edouard Marie-Galès, that the good community among the people of the book are the Quranic Nazarenes. And we will see in detail what is this grand venture that I told you about, that the Quran is about. But here, at this point, we have very strongly established that at the beginning, very beginning of Islam, at the beginning of the 7th century, there was a community of the people of the book that were opposed to the rabbinic Jews. They were Jews themselves, but they were opposed to the rabbinic Jews, opposed to the Talmudic Jews. They believed that Jesus was the Messiah, but he was only a man, and he was not divine. And they were very influential for the beginning of Islam, of course, for the converting of the Arab audience. We can assume that they were the ones who taught the preachers that we see in the Quran. And this is established on, it's a very strong claim now. This is the Quran. This is not some divagation. This is not some conjecture. This is what the Quran is about. We have established the existence of a Jewish community. this Jewish community. So next things will be to try to know who is this Jewish community exactly, and what did they want the believers, the Arab audience, to do.
Can I just jump there on something you said earlier?
Yes.
People often think of Hagarenes as people who are descendants of Hagar, but another interpretation that Joe gave is that the Gar were proselytes. So essentially, another understanding of being like a son of Hagar is to be a proselyte, someone who was Judaized, and so this could actually be part of the sense of this, that they were Judaizing the Arabs and bring them into the fold. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, you see, it could fit with what I just said. The thing is, what I just said here, it is very, very strong, very solid, and it has nothing to do with secondary sources, extrapolation, conjecture. It is only the Quran. And therefore, we can build many hypotheses, like, for example, this one. And it could fit. Yes, it could fit. Why not? But what I'm telling you now, and it is very, very groundbreaking, because when we study Islam, we don't have much in terms of sources, in terms of solid evidence. This is solid evidence. And on this, you can build very strong historical hypotheses.
Thank you, Odon. Would you be willing to take some questions from our audience?
Of course.
We'll give the first question to Ali Dawa, Jason Byrne. Can you ask Odon what Nasara means in Arabic?
Nasara in Arabic doesn't mean anything. In Arabic, Nasara doesn't mean anything. It is not an Arabic word. It has become an Arabic word. If you want, you can have a sneak peek at what's coming next, because who are the Quranic Nazarenes? This is what I was supposed to to show on the next part, but the NSR word in Arabic, it means to help, to support, to protect. And Nasara doesn't have anything to do with helpers, protection, protector, supporters. We see that the word that is formed with the NSR root is Ansar. And Nasara does not fit the Ansar meaning, but some Ansar occurrences could refer to the Nasara. According to the linguists, Nasara is a direct transliteration of the Aramaic Natsaraya, or the Hebrew Notzri, the plural Notzrim. And it is a direct translation. It's not a translation. It is a transliteration into Arabic. It's not the same thing. And the word Natsaraya, it is a very complex word. I shall leave this for the next part.
Mel, can I just take a shot at this?
Yeah, okay.
The word Nasara, it comes from the Hebrew Notzri. And actually, if you read this word in Arabic, Nasara, you will find that it ends with a ya. Ya, you could read it in Arabic as a or as e. I think it should be read as e. So Notzri, Nasari. It comes from because the Hebrews in the beginning used to call the Christians Notzri because they are from Nazareth. So it means the people of Nazareth, but in a twisted way. That's what I think it is.
Okay.
But in Arabic, it doesn't have a meaning. No, it doesn't have a clear meaning.
I partially agree with you, Murad, but I think there's more to it, because Notzri does not mean Christian. Etymologically, Christian comes from Christos. Christos is Messiah. Christian means disciple of the Messiah, messianic maybe. Notzrim, it comes from the N-Tsa-Er root in Aramaic or in Hebrew, and it does not mean Messiah. This root means to protect, to defend, to conserve, and as it is the case in all the Semitic language, we have a basic meaning and derived meanings. And the derived meaning, one of the derived meaning of this root is the netzer. Netzer we found in Isaiah, I think it's chapter 1, verse 11, which tells us about the netzer of David, the netzer of Jesse. Let me see. Morad, you oblige me to go to the next part. In Isaiah 11:1, and there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots, a netzer. So the derived meaning of nets is this branch. This branch is the royal blood of David. So the netzer is the prince. And so if the netzer is the prince, and the prince is supposed to be the Messiah, which is supposed to be the king of Israel, so the Nazaraya are the messianic people before the coming of the Messiah. But once the Messiah has come, the meaning can change because the Messiah is Jesus. So the Nazaraya are the disciple of Jesus as he is a prince, because Jesus is from the royal blood of David. And so the Nazaraya are at first the first Jewish people, the Jewish disciples of Jesus. But thereafter, the Christians adopted the Christian denomination, which means the disciple of the Messiah, Mashiach in Aramaic, Masih in Arabic. And then the one who kept on the Nazaraya denomination, they were the ones who were from Jewish origin, Jewish ethnicity, and who did not want to be called Christian, disciple of the Messiah. And when the Hebrew accused some of them to be Notzrim, which is exactly the same word as Nazaraya, they referred to the people who recognize Jesus as the Messiah, whether they are Christians or whether they are not Christian, Jewish people who recognize Jesus as the Messiah, but not as God himself. The word Nazaraya has had a meaning as a designation of the Jewish disciple of Jesus who were not Christians.
We can leave that to the next
because at the same time there still were some Orthodox Christians who kept on the Nazaraya denomination. And for example, in India, the evangelization, the Christianity came during the 1st and 2nd century with Saint Thomas and with the Jewish communities that were established there. And the local Christians called themselves, and still do call themselves nowadays, Nasrani. They have kept on the Aramaic denomination, the first Aramaic denomination of Christians. So it's very, very complex, and it's much more complex than what the standard Islamic narrative is telling us about Nasara.
Okay, I'm going to jump in with another question for you, if you want to take this question.
Yes, of course.
In this alliance that Odon proposes, where does the Manichaeans and the Sabians fall? Do you want to address that or not?
Sabians and Manichaeans are named in the Qurans as being good ones, but they don't seem to be part of the community.
Yeah.
They are close to I think the good community that is described in the Quran, but we don't know really, we don't have much in terms of Quranic evidence for them. We only know that in 2 or 3 verses they are named, and they are supposed to be good fellows. No harm should be inflicted upon them. This is also to be to be exposed in the next presentation.
Oh, okay, hold on for that. Any more questions, everyone? Now-
Mel, can I just go very quickly about this one?
Yeah.
In the Quran, you don't have the word Manichaean, and you do not have the word Sabaeans, as people think. Saba'i or Sabaean is it means from people of Sheba, from Yemen. But the word in Arabic, which is Sabi'un, this is in English Mandeans, people of Mandeans who are from Iraq. We call them in Arabic As-Sabi'a al-Mandaiya. So the Mandeans actually, in some old documents, are confused with being Gnostic Christians. So that's why when the Quran says the Nasara and the Mandeans, they are good people and stuff, it's because they are already close. They are good to the Quranic author likes them. That's what I think.
Okay. See, I think the Mandeans were a Baptist movement. They baptized people, and they might have come from John the Baptist himself. And what I'm telling you, this is not as solid as what I've told you about the Quran. But I don't know if you know Ella Wardi, which is a Tunisian scholar from Tunisia then, who wrote many books of Islamic tradition. She took a deep dive, once again, into the Islamic tradition, and she compared all the books in Arabic, and wrote the history of the beginning of Islam according to the Islamic tradition. And she used some traditions that are not very not known at all. And in her next book, I've written it in my Great Secret of Islam. In her next book to be published this year, she has found a tradition about Muhammad baptizing Umar, which
is very interesting.
Place Muhammad and Umar also in a kind of friendship with Mandeans, or maybe they were Christians, I don't know, or heretic Christians, or Christian-like people, but they might have been close to the Mandeans. But it is very, very odd, very strange to see that Muhammad, according to the Islamic tradition and according to the most Sahih of it, Muhammad baptized Umar.
You heard it here first, folks. So another question for you, Odon. If the Quranic community are Christians, why do they sometimes use Talmudic stories?
The community I was referring to is not the okay, no, I stepped on the wrong foot. I told you that the audience is Christian. The audience is Christian, and the preacher who belong to the community, to the Quranic community, try to teach them their faith. And in this faith, there is some Talmudic story or some Jewish tradition story, but the audience is not Talmudic at all. The audience is Arabic, Christian Arabic. Maybe not that Orthodox. For sure, they were not very very rigid and very straight Christians, but they were not Talmudic.
Another question. Can you ask Odon about his understanding of Proto-Arabic script?
Proto-Arabic script. I don't really know what Rational Dawa is mentioning. What I do know is that we find Arabic writing in the 7th century, almost with the dots and stuff and diacriticism. For example, in the Egypt papyri, which means that the oldest Quranic fragments, the one, for example, from Sana'a, who do not have the dots and diacriticism, which means that they were they were written like this in purpose. The diacriticism, at least an archaic diacriticism, existed at this time, but it was not used on the the oldest Quranic fragments. Why was it not used? Because those fragments were not supposed to be published, were not supposed to be read by others than the one who wrote them. There were drafts, there were notes. This is the very proof of it, because the diacriticism existed and it was not used. So there were something personal to the preacher. And my hypothesis, Galley's hypothesis, is that those fragments, those notes, those drafts were collected, were copied, recopied, recopied, and it became the Quran. And the diacriticism was added centuries later, not centuries, but tens of years later.
From my understanding, when they did introduce the various dots, it started off quite inconsistently as well. So sometimes they used them, sometimes they didn't. It's only later that the rules got more formalized.
One thing, another thing that I've read in François Desroches. François Desroches is one of the very specialists of the oldest Quranic fragments. He wrote it about the folios that are in Paris in the Bibliothèque Nationale de France, that there were different copists that copied those folios, and that the diacriticism was kind of there was no rule in it, and every copyist did what he thought should be the diacriticism, which means that the copyist did not know what they were copying. They did not know the meaning of it. They copied and recopied a text which they did not understand, which also explains us why during the 8th, 9th, and 10th centuries, when the Quran came into the hands of the traditionists, they invented stories because they didn't know what the text really meant. And they still don't know nowadays. They still keep on inventing stories to explain the text.
That's a good point. Another question here from Noel. I wanted to ask about the Nestorians. Odon didn't mention them at all. Why? How did they play?
I mentioned Arabic Christians. When we speak about Nestorians, it's about Iraqi Christians, Chaldeans mainly. But there are two kinds of Nestorians. There are the real Nestorians, which mean the one who were really heretics, or not heretics, but the one who thought that Jesus was not God. And they were the one that were called Nestorian by the Western Church, because the Western Church called every Eastern Christians, every Aramaic speaking Eastern Christian a Nestorian. So I haven't spoke about them because I don't know. I haven't found them in the Quran yet. Maybe the people of the gospel I mentioned, the one occurrence of the expression people of the gospel could refer to them, but really I don't know. They don't seem to be in the Quran. And mostly I spoke only about the Quran during this presentation.
Yeah.
I want to just add this for the viewer who is asking. AJ Deuce, he suggests that maybe the word Nasara means Nestorians. So he can find this paper and read about it if he likes.
Yes. But there is nothing in terms of Quranic evidence for it. We will see in the second part of the presentation. The Nazarene are people of the book. They are people of the book, which means they are Jews. They are of Jewish ethnicity. They have a kind of Jewish religion. So they cannot be Nestorians.
Yes.
According to the Quran.
Yeah. Another question here, an interesting one, is what do you make of the two phases in the Quran, the Meccan phase and the Median phase?
I would quote a French scholar, Jean-Jacques Valter, who did a unique analysis of the Quran with mathematic methodology, the code theory, or ADT, or ATD, I don't know. And he says that the distinction between Meccan phase and Medinan phase in the Quran is a grammarian artifact. It is completely artificial. Alors, of course, the Quran, the preaching in the Quran spread among tens of years, maybe. So maybe we can distinguish some early preaching and later preaching. I think there are some later preaching. I will speak about Surah 9, the beginning of Surah 9, as I think it is a later preaching on the next part of the presentation. But mostly the Mecca and Medina phase invention from the standard Islamic narrative to find a solution to the contradiction of the Quran, to the verse that contradicts themselves. So they invented the story of the prophecy, the revelation, and Asbab al-Nuzul, the circumstance, the way the revelation was made. And with this, they kind of got rid of those contradictions, but they're still there. And on this, I would quote also a French scholar from the beginning of the 20th century, is Father Henri Lamens, who I think he got it all. He got it all on the Quran and the tradition. He made an article in 1910, more than 100 years ago, which is called Coran et Tradition, Quran and Tradition. And he worked on the tradition, and he realized that the tradition was not written as an historical report of what happened, but was written in order to explain the Quran. And that you cannot understand the Quran, you cannot understand the standard Islamic narrative without the tradition. You see, it's a kind of vicious circle. And if you abide by the standard Islamic narrative, you cannot get hold of the Quran. You cannot understand the Quran. The vicious circle keeps on circling. And then he understood that all of this is a trick, a kind of swindle. And I will quote him. So it's my translation of his of his article, Coran and Tradition. When the Islamic tradition claims to be an independent source of information, the result of a vast investigation organized by contemporaries of the life of the Arab prophet, we can consider it one of the greatest historical tricks the literary annals remember. And this was written 100 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And it has never been truer than today, more true than today.
Is it possible that the different sections might be because they're from different preachers and they have different points of view, and that's the reason for the contradictions, you think?
Might be. I think it might be. Yes, of course. It could be. One thing also is that there might have been some division among the preachers, because we'll see it in the Nazarene part, in the Nazarene expose. There are some odd statements about the Nazarene. Some seem to be good, some seem to be bad, but it's only in one or two verses. So it might be this, it might be this. But you see, it's like I told you, we don't have much in terms of evidence to get to know what happened. We have this text, the Quran, and it is complex. We can unveil some of its complexity by reading it as an historical source, reading it literally for what it is, and only for what it is, not abiding by the standard Islamic narrative. But even though we don't have much, we have a lot. We have a lot, but we don't have much to get into those sophisticated issues you are you are referring to.
Another question here is from Veronica. Is there any historical evidence for a different treatment of Jews, Christians, and pagans by early Muslims? John Bar Pinkeye said that there was none in the 680s. Not sure what she means by there was none.
You know John Bar Pekaye's source? He
I've
wrote that the conquerors were only interested in.
It means non-different treatment. Non-different treatment.
Oh,
they
okay.
see them all as the same. Yes.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
And yes, that's what John Bar Pekaye wrote. That's also what we can read in Robert Hoyland's last book, In God's Path, which I know you read, and which is very, very, very interesting. And yes, there don't seem to have been different treatment.
Yeah.
The Arabs, I think, this is not my presentation, but this is what I developed in my book. I think the Arabs were not very different from the Christians. There were only Christians that believed that the end of times was very, very near, that Jesus would come, the Messiah would come, and he did not come back. And from there, they assumed the power. They took the power from the empires. I think the empires left the power for them for many reasons. And step by step, they built their ideology, and they pretended to be the Messiah instead of the Messiah. They pretended to be the one who would establish God's reign on earth. But it took some time. It's not until Abdul Malik that we really see a strong statement of the Arab chief, the Arab leader, being the Messiah, being the one who establishes God's kingdom on earth. So before that, they were only interested in ruling, so getting taxes, maybe a bit of loot, slaves, or I don't know. But they were seen as Christian by the Christian authors of this time. Maybe with a bit of deviance. When one speaks, wrote about Muawiyah as praying in the Holy Sepulchre of Jerusalem, it means that Muawiyah is kind of a Christian, but also the author, I don't remember him exactly, says that he's not that good of a Christian. He's a strange Christian, but a Christian nonetheless. We see, for example, in some in Muawiyah's coins, that he struck crosses and Christian symbols on his coins. We see on epigraphic writings that there were also crosses on them, epigraphic writing from Muawiyah. So this was not Islam at this time, not Islam yet. Maybe the ideas, the hopes that are at the very core of Islam were there, but Islam as a religion was not formed, was not formalized. There was no biography of a prophet. There was no prophet. There was no Quran. There was no revelation. It was something of a Christian millenarism movement.
Can I just add to what you've said? There is a Finnish rock inscription expert whose name escapes me for the minute, but he described the end of the 7th century and the early part of the 8th century as a move from there being everyone in the same sort of group, and then there being an out group eventually forming. As their identity became more and more solid, gradually they became an out group, and so therefore it's then that the various Christian groups were persecuted because they were now seen more as outsiders. Whereas in the early days, there wasn't that strong sense of the in group and the out group.
it's very. He talks about Christian as being Arabic Christian, Arabic Christian conquerors being persecuted, or he speaks about the Christian general population.
He just basically, from the evidence from the rock inscriptions, he's basically suggesting that the sense of the group identity really only started to take hold in the early part of the 8th century. So before that, there wasn't the basis for treating some groups as outsiders because they hadn't reached that kind of clarity at that point.
It's a bit like Robert Orion's book. But you see, to look at Christians in the Middle East in the 7th century, even at the end of the 7th century, as being outsider is very, very, very strange, because the Christian at this time, there was something like 95% of the population of the Middle East. There were no outsiders, there was the population.
Yeah.
And I think in order to understand what happened during this time, you have to make comparisons. And for example, the best comparison, one that I like, because it is very very revealing, is to compare Islam with communism, with what happened in Russia in 1917, when the revolution put the Bolsheviks in power. There were a very tiny minority of people ruling over a Christian population, but the whole state was supposed to be communist. And so this very tiny minority of less than 1% of the Russian population ruled over 99% of Christians. And step by step, more and more people became communists. And maybe at the time, I don't know, there were something like 50 or 60%, maybe more of the population that became really, that adhered to the Communist Party and that became communist. But it took time. And it's the same with Islam. In Islam, some Arab leaders took the power in their own hands. They fought among themselves up until one leader emerged, Abdul Malik. And they kept on fighting until one very big leader emerged, an even bigger leader, which was the first Abbasid ruler, As-Safa. And it is a bit like the Bolshevik Revolution. At this time, there was one Islamic ruler, the first Abbasid Caliph, and step by step, he imposed Islam. He created Islam. The Abbasid created Islam, and they imposed Islam upon the population.
Yeah, the point that I was going to say there on that, I had just lost it there momentarily, is the Chinese sources suggest that the elite that were key to all of this were Persians initially. So that would still fit in with your idea that you could have a minority that belonged to one group, whereas the majority could be like being Arabs. Basically, their identity got merged with the elite. So it's interesting that they have spun it later to make themselves, the leaders, out to be Arabs, whereas the reports from their envoys to the Chinese in the 650s and even into the 750s was that they were Persian at the beginning. So it's interesting. There's this contradiction, and it could be because there's a kind of a blurry line there between Arab and Persian along the borders in Iraq. Maybe that's part of the reason. It's hard to know.
I don't know much about those Chinese sources. I've discovered them thanks to you, Mel, and your tremendous work you're doing with Sneakers Corner.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, it makes sense. It makes sense. It fits with Robert Soyland's perspective, which is a bit more Westerner, but it fits. And it could also fit with what I've exposed with this thing about the Quranic evidence. But you see, we have a construction, a multiple layer construction of Islam. We have the history at the beginning of the 7th century, the middle of the 7th century, and thereafter, and then on layer after layer, Islam is being constructed. I
think it's probably a good point to wrap up. Maybe we could finish maybe with it like a short summary, maybe. Would you like to kind of, for those maybe who found it all quite a lot to take in, could you give us kind of like a bird's eye view in terms of what your whole point is today? What
I've tried to expose tonight is a kind of global reading of the Quran and a literary reading of the Quran, which means to read the Quran for what is written in it, and not what other text tells us the Quran is. And by doing so, for example, by looking at all of the occurrences of this crucial expression of the people of the book, we see that the Quran tells us that there was a good community among the people of the book. We see at first that the people of the book were the Jews, the people of the Torah. They were not Christians, they were not Muslims, they were only the Jews, the people of the Torah. And within the Jews of this time, there was a good community, a tiny community. And those Jews believed that Jesus was the Messiah, contrary to the other Jews. They believed that they did not believe that Jesus was divine, that they were opposed to the Christian in that sense, and they also believed that the end of times was imminent, and hence they must have believed that Jesus would come back, which is a logical conclusion. And we see also that those people were very influential within the first Muslim community, within the Arab audience that listened to the preaching that we find in the Quran. And those findings are very, very strong, very solid, because this is the Quranic text itself. It's not a conjecture about something that has been copied and recopied, and we find it thousands of kilometers away. I'm not referring to the Chinese sources, but it is a very solid ground on which we can build new hypotheses to understand the beginning of Islam. What was this community of Jewish people? What was it exactly? What was their project? Why did they teach preachers to preach the Arabic Christians? What happened? And this sheds a new light on Islam origins. I don't pretend, I don't claim to have found it all. Of course not. It is a huge topic, the field of research. But I claim to have found something solid, and it is a very precious thing in this field of study, because we don't have much in terms of evidence.
Yeah, I think one of the things that really struck me is that when we look at the word Quran in its Aramaic sense of lectionary, and then we see that the 10 references to it being an Arabic Quran or an Arabic lectionary, makes perfect sense if you're talking about it as another book, not the book that we call the Quran, but another book, because a book never has to claim what language it's in. It's obvious to anyone who opens up a book what language it's in. So clearly it's about another book. And straight off, once you accept that point, then your thesis really is on solid ground. And it's such a radically different interpretation of what you're looking at.
To get into my thesis, you have many starting points. I've started with the people of the book. You can start with the Quran, the Arabic Quran. You can start with the Bayt, the temple. You can start with the Hajj. You can start with the Nazarenes. But it all comes together because it's a truth, in fact. And this is what the truth is. when you find something true, it keeps on being true.
I'd see there's one of our subscribers here believes that a Nestorian patriarch called Hananisho is the link to Abd al-Malik. Basically, he thinks that Hanisho is the source for the Quran, but you would claim that many of the parts of the Quran actually are contemporary with the invasion of Jerusalem in the early part of the 7th century. There's a time.
I think so. Many parts. I think most of it, and there are some who dates a bit after. I think that maybe a bit of Surah 8 and the beginning of Surah 9.
Yeah,
it's just in order to understand it, to study it, you have then to look outside of the Quran. When you look into the Quran, like you said, you can start with the Arabic Quran and so on. You can start with the people of the book, like I did, the Kufar, the Mushrikun. You can start also by the Grand Venture. I'm prepared to talk to you about in the next part. The Grand Venture is about seizing Jerusalem, taking the Masjid al-Haram, which is another key, another starting point to understand the Quran. The Masjid al-Haram, when we look into it, when we look every occurrence of it, we see that it is not Mecca, it is not the Haram in Mecca, it is the ruins of the temple, from the ruins, the place, the mount, the Temple Mount in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And there was then several attempts to take this place, and we know two of them. Historically, we know two of them. We know one in 614. Jerusalem was taken by a coalition of Persian troops, Jewish troops from Babylonian territories, and Arab warriors. First attempt, and a second attempt in 638, maybe a bit earlier, or maybe 635. We don't know for sure, but let's say 638. And we know because we have several different testimonies, several different independent sources from different people, from different locations, and contemporary to the event. We know that the temple was rebuilt in 38, 640. This is another solid ground on which we can build something. And then in the Quran, we see some passages, some verses that speak about a time when the Masjid al-Haram had been conquered. And then we can ask ourselves, was it in 614? Was it in 638? What changed with this conquest? And then we can try to figure why the narrative in those verses seems to be different from the rest of the Quran. Why, for example, the Nazarenes are being described as vile people there. Why they should be, why the preacher asked God to make them perish, to fight them. This is in Surah 930, for example. May God fight them all. I think something like this.
Okay, I think we'll probably a good point there. We'll stop there.
Okay, it's been 2 hours.
Odon, thanks very much for coming on. We'll be back with you.
Thank you, Mel, for your work, for this channel, for everything and thank you, Murat, also for everything you do.
Thank you very much for being on the channel.
It's been brilliant, and we'll look forward to part 2.
Yes, maybe next week. You should also look forward to the English translation of The Great Secret of Islam, the book, my book. I'm working on it right now. It surely is a huge work, but I will try to have it at least to have the PDF file available for free next Saturday.
Okay, I'll hold you to that.
I'll have to work. A lot of work. Wow. Okay. Thank you, Mel. Morad. Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.